Heyo, welcome everyone to Today in the Scene by Indie Arcade Wave. I'm Joe, your host, and here on In the Scene, we dive into what's happening in the arcade space. From new indie arcade developers, arcade operators and owners, and just news in the space in general. Now, if you're looking to bring an indie game into your collection, just like the one we're going to talk about today, the Indie Arcade Wave website is live. We've got 13 or 14 games on there. This one should be on there very soon. And you can just either hit the buy now button if it's an option. If it's not, just scroll down, go to the contact me, get in touch with me, and we will get you the game that you want for your collection and or arcade. They go great in the basement, but they look great in the arcade. Now, this week we're going to dive into an indie game. We did speak with Dan of DSM Arcade a while ago about this game. We've had him on for Nidhogg 2, Switch and Shoot, and now he's finished his newest game, Perfect Pour, which is the first original DSM Arcade game in collaboration with Matt Glanville. How are you doing, Dan?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to talk to you again. I mean, I know we're kind of always chatting here and there, just talking about the indie space and kind of what's going on with each other's games. And I'm excited for Perfect Pour. I saw a pretty early prototype at MGC since the last time we spoke, and I'm really excited to see the final thing. So I guess let's just, for anybody that hasn't seen an episode with you in it, like, who's Dan? What's DSM Arcade?
DSM Arcade is an arcade game manufacturer, I guess. I work with game developers to design arcade games. I do like the prototyping and design of the cabinet, and I work with the people making the specific parts. Kind of guide the game development on our first two titles were kind of ports from PC and console, and so I'd work with the game developers and tell them what needs to be in the arcade version. But like you said, Perfect Pour is our first unique to arcade title, and on that one, I guess like the title is like game director. I worked with Matt Glanville of Switch and Shoot and in many other games, and kind of guided the whole game development on that. But yeah, project manager, whatever you want to call it, all the cabinet design stuff, working with the artists, kind of everything.
Sweet. I mean, it's been cool kind of seeing your progression from finding an indie game that's like Switch and Shoot that was, a little bit smaller, popular definitely, but a little bit smaller, and then finding a game like Nidhogg 2 and putting that in the cabinet, and now you have like an original idea that was developed by that first developer that you got in working with. So tell us a little bit about, like, how did you come up with Perfect Pour and what was your reasoning for like developing this game?
Sure. Uh, I'm always just thinking about what we're going to work on next. Like, there's a huge like laundry list of ideas that we want to try out. This one in particular, I was just sitting at a bar in a brewery called Confluence in Des Moines. It's a great brewery, and I was just sitting at the bar, just watching. It was like probably like happy hour on a Friday, like super busy, and they have like 20 taps like lining their wall, the back wall, and I'm just watching this bartender just like dash back and forth across the taps, and like he'll start like a huge pour over of like a pitcher on this end and dash to the other end and pour a little 5 ounce pour for a fight and dash back and stop the pitcher and start another standard pint in the middle. And I'm just watching him sipping my beer as he's going back and forth and doing that. And it was like, I think I said this like maybe on the last interview, it was just like light bulb moment, like that would be an awesome game. That sounds super fun. And then just talk to Matt and literally just have these like crummy little MS Paint like drawings I did of what the game would look like, and like what the objective is and where we could find the fun in it. And just kind of like I found our original conversations. I think the idea I had in 2019, like fall of 2019, and then we were working on Nidhogg 2 for quite a while, and then the prototype started the very, very first prototype, which was like a 2-week prototype in February of 2021. And then it just sat for another like few years until last year, where we just kind of like the entire year we're working on it in terms of cabinet design and game development. But yeah, it kind of, the idea came the same time we started work on Nidhogg 2, I think, and then just tabled it as we worked on that. I don't really have the capacity to do multiple games, or didn't have the capacity to do multiple games, But yeah, so we just sat on that, and then once Nidhogg 2 was out there, and we were feeling comfortable with that and how it's doing, I just kind of was thinking about what's next, and got on a call with Matt, Glanville. Kind of talked about his game catalog, what we thought, if we could bring another one of his like current games to arcade. But then I said like my instinct was that there's a lot of fun to find in Perfect Pour, and so we just decided to pursue that, because even on that super like simple 2-week prototype, which was like pretty, I mean, even in terms of like the gameplay was pretty different. It was a lot of fun. Like I put it on my 4-player cabinet and just used the joystick on each one. It was dashing back and forth, pouring beers, But yeah, it's changed quite a bit, which I can talk about too if you want me to jump into that, versus how it's kind of changed versus that early prototype, and even how it's changed since what we were showing last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that, because last time you were showing it to me, it was pretty much like a blank box. I feel like you had people write on it at like some show or demoed it there. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
We showed it August 2023 at 2D
right.
Con. I forgot about that.
Yep.
So we
That's what
got
it was.
invited to
Yep.
bring. Yeah, yeah. They asked us to come to 2D Con and bring Nidhogg 2 and Switch and Shoot. And I was like, actually, I've got this other game that we're kind of messing around with, and it'd be nice to just kind of fill out the booth a bit with a third game. And so yeah, so I decided just to bring Switch and Shoot, or excuse me, I decided to bring along Perfect Pour as well, and just kind of was like, hey, this is like a fun little thing that we made. Check this out. And this was kind of before it was like solid, like, hey, this is what we're going to work on next. But then it was just like the response to it was like really, really positive. Like we had these like fully fledged, like really nice like games in Nidhogg 2 and Switch and Shoot, but we had just as many people playing Perfect Pour, which at the time was just in like a spray painted arcade with a bunch of writing on it and Sharpies and stuff like that. We had also showed it for like a day at Fire Trucker Brewery in Ankeny, Iowa. But yeah, super great response to it. And I came back from that just really invigorated in terms of like wanting to work on that. And then we just kind of, I started designing the cabinet for it, because I was like, we're going to move forward with this. And then it was, gosh, maybe whatever, 6 or 7 months later that MGC rolled around. And by that point, it was like I had the cabinet designed. We were working with the artist already in terms of cabinet art. The game was pretty much still in its current like form as it was in 2D Con, but like shown in a bigger audience at MGC was just like awesome. We because it was just like the accessibility of it. It was like a lot wider age ranges at Midwest Gaming Classic. So we saw like I just remember like a 7-year-old kid like walking up to it, around 7, and just kind of looking at it for a second, and then just going, oh, like a look of recognition, walking up and playing it correctly. Because that was like the big like revelation, is whereas like Switch and Shoot or Nidhogg 2 or like most games, you got to play it for a little bit to kind of figure out what the rules are and how it's going to work. But for Perfect Pour, you can look at it and you probably know what's going to happen when you pull that lever back. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like a real world controller. Like it behaves exactly as you expect it. So I love games like that kind of like how to play before you've ever played them. And so we were really, really excited about that. Got a great response at MGC. The version we had at MGC was like a single person would come up with an order and be like, I want this beer and this beer. They'd order anywhere from 1 to 4 beers, and you'd have to pour them like that, and kind of like fill that order one at a time. And then when we knew that we were going to be pursuing this game, Matt came over from England and just stayed with us for a couple weeks, and we just like were working on the game, like talking about every idea, just sitting in front of it for hours, and just like, what if we did this? He'd do some code changes, we'd test it out right away. It was just like awesome to be working in person rather than just 6 hours apart through DMs on Discord. But like we talked about that kind of orders based system, and it was just kind of limiting in how like much fun you could have with it, how you could scale up the difficulty, how or the pace of it. It didn't feel like quite as kind of chaotic. It kind of just felt like kind of role playing as a bartender, which was like super fun and people loved that. But it was like we had to find a game in it too. Like there was literally no fail states in that original prototype. You couldn't, like, people would just sit there until you served them. Like there was no way to like lose the game. That's how early the prototype was. And so just, talking through that and working on it, we changed it to it's like there's 4 beers, 4 tap handles, and then a customer will line up at whichever one. And so you're kind of like whack-a-mole, kind of dashing over, like, oh, this person wants this. Your arms are crossing as you're like pulling this one. All these crazy things can happen. Like a keg can blow, so you pull a lever, and then it's like you got to pump it to fix the keg, or a perfectionist customer who has to have it perfect. Pitchers, half pours, which totally change the pace of play. Lots of stuff like that, and just changing it to that kind of I can't remember what we even called it. It was the order-based system. We switched it to, I think, queue-based or something like that, like line-based or something like that. People get in line, And so we switched to that, and that's when the game really, really like opened up and felt like more of an arcade game rather than just like a little kind of funny little prototype thing just for fun. And that was like that was like when in the first like couple days Matt was here. And that kind of just like really opened up the game development in terms of like the path we wanted to take it.
Yeah, I love hearing the growth and the change in the game. Because when I played it, you're right, it was just that like single person walks up, they want this many beers, you pour that many beers, they go away, the next person comes up. And it was mostly
Right.
time based, and then you get a however much money you made in that shift. I think that's a
They
really
like
cool
felt good.
concept.
Like it proved like the pouring function like felt good. Like to pour on this and to
100%.
watch it fill up like felt good. And that was like, that was like a crucial part of like, hey, does the core mechanic like feel good to do? And then it was just figuring out everything around that. It's like doing this part of like game development, because in the past, like my role in game development was just like, oh yeah, you've got to put these options in the menu.
Right.
The wallet system's got to work like this, that kind of stuff. But this was like from the ground up, developing an arcade title that we knew would be for arcades, like really like ended up with such a different product rather than kind of like retrofitting something for the arcade. It's really was like more, it came out more different from those other titles than I thought it would. Like I just feel like the list of features like for operators and stuff like that is just like pretty robust in terms of, like there's customization in the game. You can like change the logo that hangs on the bar in the background, so you can do like your brewery logo or arcade bar logo, whatever, Dave's, man cave, whatever you want to put, that kind of stuff. You can customize the attract mode. So like as it's like, when the game attract mode is when the game's not being played. So like it's just rotated through like a slideshow of like different, here's gameplay, here's the credits, here's the high scores. You can customize that and be like, here's our drink specials this week or whatever, that kind of stuff. Tons of like options to really fine tune the difficulty in terms of like, round timers and customer timers and all this stuff to really like, because operators want to know about like earning potential and stuff like that. We thought of that from like day one, whereas like, on a title that was made for a console or PC, somebody buys it and you're not thinking in terms of like average play time, throughput, how many people are like playing, how many people are putting in a second quarter or whatever. But like from day one, if you're developing around that, you can really, make something that's kind of like catered to that, fun for the player, but also, earns well for an operator, which is like huge.
Yeah, I mean, the earning side is a big deal. If it's not earning, it's not going to get purchased by operators that are going to place it in arcades, and it's the tough
To be
spot. You
seen.
gotta
Yeah.
you have to appease the operator, but you also have to make a game that is fun, that you love playing, and that people are going to love playing too. So it's a
Totally. That's a
balance. It's
super,
definitely
super
a
hard
balance.
balance. It's
Yeah,
something that like has
without a doubt.
people, continually putting in payments, but they're like happy to do it. Like that's like super, that's a big ask for somebody to like, everyone has limited like money. So you're like, it's a big ask to be like, hey, put more into this. So you have to make it really fun, really satisfying, and give people like, a reason, something they can look forward to on the next quarter, like, oh, I could
Right.
try this next time. I can improve on this, or I want to see this boss or whatever,
And that's something
they got
that
to get
pinball
something out.
did perfectly. I've been playing it. I've been playing so much pinball lately.
Oh, really?
Let's
Nice.
talk about just the games in general. Like, what is it like having a catalog of 3 games, and your reach now? You have other locations. So it's a little bit easier to like pre-sell these games. Just talk about where you've come in this. I mean, what has it been, like 6, 7 years that you've been doing this? Like the progression of DSM Arcade.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess like I've been building. I probably built the first one in like maybe 2015 or 2016, like a really like kind of junky, like Simpsons replica cabinet, that was just like, hand painted and looked really rough. But having 3 games, like I think Switch and Shoot we first showed in 2018 at that MGC maybe. So yeah, it's been 7 years. Uh, but yeah, having 3 games is, I don't know why, but it's just like that feels like I've been looking forward to that for a long time. I even like made posts about that like the day Perfect Poor came out, about like just the line on our website going from 2 games to 3 just feels like a catalog. You know what I mean? Instead of just, oh, if it's one, it's like, hey, I'm a guy that did this one thing. You have no idea, like, if I'm doing another game, how this is like supported. Even 2, it's like, okay, yeah, he made another one. This is whatever. But I just feel like 3, like, just made me. It's like my own self satisfaction to a degree of just like, just being able to put out 3 very different games, seeing them all lined up, how different the gameplay is, how different the control panels are, wildly different. But I think, yeah, from like an industry perspective, like that was, I heard a lot more feedback on that than I thought I would, in terms of like people being like, oh, okay, like they're gonna DSM Arcade will stick around and keep putting out games, and they're not gonna, disappear. It wasn't like we made a game. We had a game that we put in an arcade, cabinet. We're an arcade game manufacturer, but yeah, we're like immediately like at work on, improvements to Perfect Poor related projects, and also just like new games right away. So that's just gonna, continue to expand. I'm like super happy with what it is so far, and where it's going. Like I've said it like to a bunch of people, but like whether we sell one of these or 1,000 of them, I'm going to keep making the games. How many we sell certainly changes the rate at which we come out with new games. But yeah, this is just what I'm doing for sure. I like it too much. The people, the process, it's just a blast. So yeah, we'll see a lot more games coming every year, I think.
Yeah, I love to hear that because I do really enjoy the games. I was at MagFest just the other week, and I played Switch and Shoot like constantly. Like it was nonstop. I finally hit like 1,300 on there, and I was like, okay, that feels pretty good. Like I'm almost on the
Nice.
scoreboard on Chris Meyer's cabinet, but he's got some pretty crazy scores
Sure.
on there. Um,
Yeah,
you kind of
I think he's
mentioned
got
it with
number
like the
one.
indie space and how it's grown. He probably does. I mean, did he get the first cabinet from you?
Oh,
Is
you
that what
cut
you were
out for a
saying?
second.
Number 1 for cabinet?
He's got like the first cabinet. I don't think I held on to the first Switch and Shoot. I think I built one, and now I was just like, I wonder if anybody. That's how it started. It was like, I think that was kind of like the key to like the growth of DSM Arcade too, is that, modest as it is, it was just like, hey, what if I built an arcade game? Okay, I did that. This looks pretty cool. What if I built another one and just made it look better? Did that. Oh, this friend kind of wants one. Oh, what if I worked with a game developer to make an arcade cabinet just for their game? Oh, what if we were able to sell this? What if we were able to do 2? What if we were able to do another game, and just kind of grow, and just always kind of just move in like the goalposts and like these really reasonable steps. Like I don't think, there's too much, like when I had like Switch and Shoot of like a goal of selling like 1,000 of them. I had like a reasonable kind of expectations like all along the way, and I've been really like, which is good. You got to have some like kind of out there goals too, of course, to motivate you, but you got to find a happy medium in between. But yeah, kind of those like reasonable goal setting has been really good for the growth of the company. But yeah, whatever. Long answer to, yes, Chris Myers, I believe, has the number 1 Switch and Shoot, like, serial number 1, and then maybe Up Down Des Moines is the second, I think, probably.
The local arcade. That's a good place to have the second one. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about the indie arcade space. Like obviously you're a big part of it. You're making games and everything. What do you see for the future of the space? Like how optimistic are you, and why do you think more arcades should be bringing these games in?
Well, gosh, I mean, like there's like arcade bars out there that I think just like have like it just brings new life into like these arcades. I think you have to have like a new selection And there's so many arcade bars out there now that like maybe if you're going arcade to arcade, you're not seeing like a big variety on the games. I just think there's a danger of like if you're not introducing these newer titles, especially like we make our games look like kind of retro style, so they fit in with that stuff. And I think if you're not mixing in stuff like that, I think it could feel a little stagnant. I mean, like right now, you know, I don't think that's like necessarily the case. I mean, arcade bars are, you know, doing pretty well. There's more and more, but I think, you know, with how prevalent they are now, and just like how all of them largely have, you know, 80%, like kind of the 70% maybe, like the same games. I just think that space is going to start to kind of feel a bit, you know, like I said, stagnant, and so people will be wanting to see some new stuff. And I think indie arcades, you know, with like the same format and kind of footprint, kind of fit into that setting and kind of keep it fresh, you know, with like modern, you know, play standards. Like some of those games, man, I mean, like I love retro games, but like some of them just do not fit into like what people expect from games today, you know, like in just in terms of how they control, like how hard they are, like what they, you know, look like. But I think like indie arcades are like kind of that happy medium that they fit right in with those games, but kind of have modern standards in terms of like gameplay expectations and their aesthetic and things like that. So I think it's a safe and kind of smart way to keep that space feeling really fresh.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we all say retro inspired modern design. Like that's the whole idea of the indie space, is to
Mhm.
pay homage to the old games that we love and still play, but introduce something new that is a little bit fresher. And you're right, they look like retro games. A lot of people, I've heard from almost every developer that they've been showing it somewhere, and somebody goes, "Oh, I remember playing this as a kid," but you did.
Yeah, we got that
I
on
mean,
Switch and Shoot. Yeah, the first time we showed Switch and Shoot. What year is this built? I can't remember. And I was like, this year?
yeah, this is brand new. We just brought it out. This is the first time it's been shown to the public. Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's hilarious to me that it's like that. That's really all I had for you, Dan. So just shout out social medias, let people know where they can find you, and let them know where they can buy games. Because I know I'm gonna put Perfect Pour up on the website pretty soon here, but all your other games are on there right now.
Nice. Yeah, DSM Arcade on everything. We mainly post to we've got like the biggest following on Instagram, and so I just kind of get stuck on posting there and kind of neglecting. I think it auto posts to like Facebook and stuff too. We got a nice little website, dsmarcade.com. Yeah, I you know, we just have right now. I guess I should tell people where they can play Perfect Pour. Right now, there's just two out in the wild, but in the next few weeks, we'll have a lot more rolling out. You can check out like the game locator on our website if you go to dsmarcade.com and click on is it called locator or game map or something like that, and we have them all across the country, and that'll be updated pretty soon with a lot more locations. But yeah, we haven't even shipped our like first, you know, we launched on December 7th or 10th or something like that, and then it's just about to go. uh you know, that first batch production run's about to ship all over the country, and then I think just, you know, probably another month or two after that we'll have another even bigger one kind of rolling out. So just, yeah, if you're just follow us on social media and check that game map on our website to kind of see where you can play all of our games.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna put the links to all that in the description, and I'm gonna update my game locator as well, so you can find it on either website. Yours is probably gonna be more accurate than mine, though. Um, But I want to say thank you for coming on, Dan. I really appreciate the time. I love talking about Perfect Pour. I can't wait to play it. For anyone that's still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us a ton. The wave will continue to grow. We can all ride it together. We've got a bunch of games on the Indie Arcade Wave website. So if you're looking to bring in a new game, don't forget to check that out and grab one for your arcade or basement. But until next time, peace.